In the vastness of space, humanity had always wondered if we were alone. That question was answered in 2157, but not in the way anyone expected. We weren't discovered by them. We discovered them. And what we found wasn't some peaceful federation of aliens hoping to welcome us into a galactic community. No, what we found was an empire that had grown fat and arrogant on 10,000 years of unopposed expansion. I remember the day our deep space sensors first detected their fleet approaching the Orion Arm. I was just a junior analyst at Solar Defense Command back then, monitoring what we thought was routine traffic near the edge of our territory. The massive energy signatures initially looked like sensor ghosts. No known spacecraft could be that large. But as the readings kept coming in, the reality became clear. We were dealing with ships the size of small moons. The Galactic Empire, as they called themselves, didn't even bother to send diplomatic channels first. Their initial transmission was simple and direct: submit to imperial authority or face extinction. They'd used that same message on 1,000 worlds before us, and it had worked every time. Their arrogance was almost understandable. They'd never faced a species that could truly fight back. What they didn't know was that humanity had spent the last century preparing for exactly this scenario. Ever since we mastered faster-than-light travel, we've been building, planning, and developing technologies that would make even the most advanced alien species think twice. We weren't about to bow down to anyone, no matter how ancient their empire claimed to be. I still get chills thinking about Admiral Chen's response to their ultimatum. She stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, the pride of our fleet, and transmitted a message that would go down in human history. This is your only warning. Turn back now. Humanity will not submit, and you are not prepared for what follows if you proceed. We've studied your tactics, we've analyzed your technology, and we know your weaknesses. Run. They laughed. Of course they laughed. Their empires spanned thousands of systems, and they'd crushed every species they'd ever encountered. But they'd never faced humans before. They didn't understand that we'd spent our entire history preparing for warfare, that every major human advancement had come from conflict. We turned our greatest weakness, our propensity for war, into our greatest strength. The first battle was about to begin, and I had a front row seat from the command center. Our quantum sensors tracked their fleet as they moved into position, their formation perfect and predictable, exactly as our simulations had shown. They had no idea that we'd been watching them for decades, studying their every move through cloaked probes and quantum surveillance. The Empire's ships were massive, beautiful, and terrifying, like floating cities made of some crystalline material that seemed to absorb light itself. But size isn't everything in space warfare, as they were about to learn. Our smaller, more agile ships had advantages they couldn't even comprehend, and our weapons. Well, let's just say we had a few surprises waiting for them. As I watched the tactical display light up with thousands of contact signatures, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of pride and sadness. Pride in humanity's resilience and preparation, sadness that first contact had come to this. But they'd made their choice. They'd chosen to threaten us, to treat us like just another primitive species to be conquered. The Empire's fleet moved into attack position, their energy weapons charging, their shields humming to life. They thought they were about to teach humanity a lesson about defying their authority. They had no idea they were about to learn a very different lesson, one about underestimating the species they dismissed as mere primitives. But what happened next? That's where the real story begins. The Empire struck first, their massive capital ships unleashing a barrage that lit up space like artificial suns. They expected to see our ships disintegrate, to watch our defenses crumble. Instead, their energy weapons passed harmlessly through holographic projections, while our real fleet emerged from quantum camouflage behind them. The looks on their faces, if they had faces, must have been priceless when they realized they'd been firing at ghosts. Our first counterattack demonstrated exactly why you shouldn't underestimate humanity. We didn't just have better tactics, we had technology they'd never even dreamed of. While they relied on brute force and overwhelming firepower, we had developed quantum-entangled weaponry that ignored their shields completely. The first volley from our smaller ships carved through their capital vessels like they were made of paper. But it wasn't just our technology that gave us the edge. Humans have something that the Empire had lost over their millennia of easy victories: adaptability. When they tried to adjust their shield frequencies, we were already switching to different attack patterns. When they attempted to copy our quantum targeting systems, we showed them exactly why reverse engineering isn't so simple when you don't understand the underlying principles. I remember watching from the command center as our ships executed maneuvers that the Empire's tactical computers dismissed as impossible. Their rigid, hierarchical command structure couldn't compete with our autonomous ship captains making split-second decisions. Every time they tried to predict our movements, we did something completely unexpected. The Empire had forgotten that chaos can be a strategy in itself. Admiral Chen's voice remained steady throughout the battle, coordinating our forces with the precision of a surgeon. "Focus fire on their command and control systems," she ordered. "Don't let them establish a coherent response." Our ships moved like a swarm of angry hornets, striking from impossible angles, disappearing before the enemy could lock on, only to reappear somewhere else entirely. The Empire's response was predictable. They called for reinforcements. They still didn't understand that this wasn't going to be like their other conquests. As their second wave of ships began emerging from hyperspace, they found themselves facing something they'd never encountered before: human ingenuity at its finest. We had seeded the entire sector with quantum mines, invisible, untraceable, and devastating. As their reinforcements arrived, the mines activated, creating localized pockets of distorted spacetime. Their mighty ships were torn apart by forces they didn't even have words to describe. This wasn't just warfare. This was humanity showing them that we had mastered principles of physics they hadn't even discovered yet. The battle had been raging for hours, but we were just getting started. Our ships had barely tapped into their energy reserves, while the Empire's fleet was already showing signs of strain. Their perfect formations had broken down. Their coordinated attacks had devolved into desperate individual actions. For the first time in their long history, they were facing an enemy that wasn't just fighting back. We were winning. But then something changed. One of their damaged capital ships began emitting energy signatures unlike anything we'd seen before. The readings were off the charts, suggesting they were preparing to deploy some kind of last resort weapon. Admiral Chen recognized the danger immediately and ordered our fleet to fall back to defensive positions. As the enemy vessel's energy signature continued to build, we detected unusual distortions forming around it. Whatever they were planning, it was clear they weren't going to accept defeat gracefully. The Empire was about to show us why they had remained undefeated for so long, and we were about to learn whether our preparations had been enough for what was coming next. The real test of humanity's resolve was about to begin. The energy readings from the Empire's damaged capital ship suddenly spiked beyond anything our sensors could measure. A brilliant purple light began pulsing from its core, distorting the very fabric of space around it. Our quantum analysis systems were screaming warnings. Whatever weapon they were charging up had the potential to tear a hole in reality itself. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the tension in the command center. "All ships, maximum distance. Form defensive pattern Delta 7. As our fleet executed their orders with practiced precision, I couldn't help but notice that even our most experienced officers were holding their breath. We prepared for almost every scenario, but this was something different. The Empire's remaining ships began to arrange themselves in a perfect circle around their weapon-charging vessel. Their formation wasn't defensive. It was ceremonial. They were about to show us something they'd reserved for only the most dire circumstances, something they believed would finally teach humanity our place in the galaxy. That's when our deep space monitoring stations detected it, ripples in spacetime spreading out like waves on a pond. The Empire wasn't just charging a weapon. They were trying to create a localized temporal vortex. They intended to trap our entire fleet in a time dilation field, where centuries would pass for us while only moments passed for them. It was elegant, brutal, and exactly the kind of arrogant solution we come to expect from them. But humanity had a few more surprises left. As the Empire's weapon reached critical levels, Admiral Chen revealed our final card. "Execute Protocol Prometheus," she commanded, her voice steady despite the stakes. Throughout our fleet, hidden systems began powering up. Technology we developed in secret, inspired by archaeological discoveries on Mars, that we kept hidden from all our deep space sensors. The Empire's temporal weapon finally fired, releasing a massive wave of chronometric energy that warped the space between our fleets. They expected to see our ships freeze in time, becoming eternal monuments to their superiority. Instead, they watched in disbelief as their weapon's energy was caught and redirected by dozens of quantum singularity generators deployed across our fleet. These devices, reverse-engineered from ancient Martian technology, didn't just neutralize their temporal attack. They reflected it, amplified it, and turned it into something new. The space between our fleets became a swirling maelstrom of temporal energy, with neither side certain what would happen when it finally stabilized. In the command center, alarms were blaring as our systems tried to make sense of what was happening. The Empire's weapon and our countermeasures had created something unprecedented, a temporal feedback loop that was growing more unstable by the second. Both fleets were now caught in its pull, making retreat impossible for either side. Admiral Chen stood at her command station, her expression grim but determined. "All ships, prepare to execute Emergency Protocol Omega," she announced. "We didn't want to use this, but they've left us no choice." Around our fleet, special panels began opening on our ship's hulls, revealing devices we'd hoped would never see use. Our absolute last resort. The Empire's ships were starting to show signs of panic, their perfect formation breaking down as the temporal storm grew stronger. They'd never expected this level of resistance, never imagined that their ultimate weapon could be turned against them. But what terrified them most was seeing our fleet begin a new formation, one that defied all known tactics of space warfare. As our ships moved into position, the temporal distortions reached critical levels. We were about to attempt something that no species had ever tried before, something that could either save humanity or doom both fleets to an existence outside of normal space-time. The next few moments would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but possibly the fate of our entire species. Just as Admiral Chen was about to activate our final protocol, our quantum sensors detected something impossible. A third fleet was emerging from hyperspace, but these ships were neither human nor Empire design. They were ancient, their hulls covered in patterns that matched the artifacts we discovered on Mars. The precursors, the very civilization whose technology we reverse-engineered, had returned. The temporal storm between our fleets reacted to their arrival, its chaotic energies suddenly falling into perfect geometric patterns. The precursor ships moved with impossible grace, their technology so advanced it made both our fleet and the Empire's look like children's toys. They positioned themselves in a triangular formation that somehow stabilized the temporal distortions, creating a pocket of calm space in the middle of the chaos. The Empire's reaction was immediate and predictable. They opened fire on the new arrivals. Their weapons, powerful enough to vaporize planets, simply dissipated harmlessly against the precursor's defenses. What happened next sent chills down my spine. The precursor ships didn't return fire. Instead, they projected some kind of energy field that froze the Empire's fleet in place, leaving them unable to move or fire their weapons. A transmission reached both fleets simultaneously, but it wasn't in any language we recognized. Instead, images and emotions flooded directly into our minds. The precursors were showing us something, the true history of our galaxy, and the real reason they'd abandoned their empire millennia ago. What we saw changed everything we thought we knew about this conflict. The Empire, it turned out, wasn't the original aggressor we'd assumed them to be. They were running from something that had been chasing them across the galaxy for thousands of years. Their attempt to conquer and control every species they encountered wasn't just about power. It was about building an army for a war they knew was coming. Admiral Chen's face paled as the precursor's message became clear. The temporal weapon the Empire had tried to use wasn't designed to trap us in time. It was meant to hide us all from something that was approaching, something that had already consumed countless galaxies. The Empire's actions, while brutal, had been driven by desperate survival rather than mere conquest. In the command center, our sensors began detecting massive disturbances at the edge of our solar system. The precursor's message had come too late. The entity the Empire had been fleeing, the true threat to all life in our galaxy, was already here. Our instruments showed something massive emerging from the void, something that defied all known laws of physics. The temporal storm that still raged around us suddenly took on new significance. It wasn't just a weapon or a defense. It was a key to something much bigger. The precursors hadn't returned just to stop our battle with the Empire. They'd come to show us that we needed each other. Their technology, combined with the Empire's temporal weapons and humanity's quantum innovations, might be the only hope of stopping what was coming. Admiral Chen made a decision that would change the course of human history. She opened a direct channel to both the Empire's fleet and the precursor ships. "This is humanity," she declared, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We accept your warning, and we offer an alliance. Whatever's coming for us, we face it together." As she spoke those words, our sensors detected more anomalies forming throughout the solar system. The true battle for survival was about to begin, and the outcome would depend on whether three vastly different civilizations could set aside their differences in time to face an enemy none of them fully understood. The entity emerging from the void revealed itself, a cosmic horror that devoured light, time, and space itself. It appeared as a writhing mass of darkness larger than Jupiter, with tendrils of antimatter reaching across our solar system. This was the apex predator of the universe, a being that had consumed countless civilizations and grown stronger with each one it absorbed. In that moment, the impossible happened. The Empire's commander opened a direct channel to Admiral Chen, not with demands or threats, but with the tactical data they gathered from every civilization that had fallen to this entity. The precursors simultaneously transmitted the complete blueprints of their most advanced technology, secrets they'd kept hidden for millennia. We had minutes, perhaps seconds, to forge these different technologies into something that could save us all. Our quantum computers worked at unprecedented speeds, combining Empire temporal mechanics with precursor energy manipulation and human ingenuity. The solution that emerged was beautiful in its simplicity. We couldn't destroy the entity, but we could trap it. The temporal storm we created wasn't just a weapon. It was the prototype of what we needed, just on a much larger scale. Every ship in all three fleets took up precise positions, forming a vast geometric pattern around the approaching entity. The Empire's temporal weapons, instead of trying to freeze time, would create a repeating loop. The precursor ships would stabilize this loop, preventing it from collapsing. And humanity's quantum technology would ensure the entity couldn't escape into other dimensions, something it had done countless times before when faced with defeat. As the entity reached out with its tendrils of darkness, Admiral Chen gave the order that would echo through history. All ships, execute Protocol Unity. The combined fleet acted as one. Empire temporal beams connected with precursor energy fields, all channeled through human quantum matrices. The fabric of spacetime itself began to fold and twist in ways that defied comprehension. The entity, sensing the trap, tried to retreat, but for the first time in its ancient existence, it had encountered something it couldn't consume or escape: the combined ingenuity of three civilizations fighting for survival. The temporal prison began to form, layers of time folding over themselves like origami made of reality itself. But victory came at a price. The energy required to maintain the trap was immense. Ships from all three fleets were being torn apart by the forces they were channeling. The entity's prison would hold, but only if it was continually maintained by ships generating the field. Someone would have to stay behind, trapped in the same temporal loop as the entity, forever keeping it contained. The Empire volunteered immediately, seeking redemption for their centuries of conquest. The precursors offered their eternal vigilance, seeing it as their duty as the eldest civilization, but it was humanity who provided the final solution. Admiral Chen revealed our secret weapon: autonomous quantum ships, capable of maintaining the field indefinitely without crews, powered by artificial quantum singularities. As the trap closed around the entity, sealing it in an eternal moment, our victory seemed complete. The three fleets had succeeded where countless civilizations had failed, but in the final moments, our sensors detected something chilling: a signal sent by the entity just before its imprisonment. A signal aimed at the darkest corners of space, where our instruments detected movement, many movements. The Empire's commander broke the stunned silence. That wasn't their apex predator. That was their scout. The precursors confirmed our worst fears. What we just trapped was merely the vanguard of something far larger. We'd won the battle, but the war for survival was just beginning. Humanity, the Empire, and the precursors would need to forge a more permanent alliance, because somewhere out there in the darkness between galaxies, something much worse had just received a signal that its prey was ready for harvest. In the days following our victory, Earth's orbital shipyards became a symbol of our new alliance. Empire ships docked alongside human vessels, while precursor artifacts were studied in joint research facilities. The same quantum computers that had helped us trap the entity were now processing the vast archives of knowledge shared between our civilizations, preparing us for what we all knew was coming. Admiral Chen, now leading the Combined Defense Force, stood before the United Earth Council with representatives from both the Empire and the precursors. The Empire's admission of their past actions was painful but necessary. They'd spent millennia trying to prepare the galaxy for this threat, but their methods had only bred resentment and resistance. The precursors shared their own burden of guilt, revealing how their withdrawal from the galaxy had left younger civilizations vulnerable. But it was humanity's role that surprised everyone. Our constant wars, our relentless drive to innovate in the face of conflict, our ability to unite against common threats. These weren't our weaknesses, as we'd always believed. They were the crucial elements needed to face what was coming. Where the Empire had sought control and the precursors had chosen isolation, humanity had developed the perfect balance of innovation and cooperation. The entity we trapped had sent a signal that would take years to reach its destination. Those years became our window of opportunity. The Empire's vast industrial capacity was redirected from conquest to preparation. Precursor technology, combined with human ingenuity, began transforming our solar system into a fortress. Massive defense platforms were constructed, powered by quantum singularities and equipped with temporal weapons that could trap entire fleets in eternal stasis. But our greatest achievement wasn't technological, it was diplomatic. The alliance formed in desperate battle became a template for a new galactic civilization. Other species, once subjugated by the Empire, were now invited as equals into this federation of survival. Each brought their own unique perspectives and innovations to our common defense. I still work at Solar Defense Command, but my role has changed dramatically. Now I coordinate with Empire tacticians and precursor scientists, analyzing data from deep space sensors that stretch across multiple galaxies. We're tracking something massive moving through the void between stars, consuming everything in its path. Our estimates suggest we have less than a decade before it reaches us. But we're ready. The combined knowledge of 3 civilizations has given us advantages our ancestors couldn't have imagined. The Empire's devastating temporal weapons have been refined and perfected. The Precursor's ancient technology has been integrated into our defense systems, and humanity's quantum innovations have created shields that can protect entire star systems. Admiral Chen's words from our last briefing still echo in my mind. We're no longer fighting for victory. We're fighting for survival, not just for humanity, not just for the Empire or the Precursors, but for all life in our galaxy. She was right. The signals we've detected suggest that this entity and its kind have already consumed countless galaxies. Ours might be one of the last bastions of life in this part of the universe. The temporal prison holding the Scout entity has become our greatest research asset. Every day we learn more about our enemy's weaknesses, its patterns, its very nature. The Empire's scientists believe they've found a way to not just trap these beings, but to destroy them completely. The Precursors are less optimistic, but even they admit that our combined technological advancement has exceeded their greatest achievements. As I look out at the combined fleet conducting battle drills near Jupiter, I can't help but feel a strange sense of hope. We warned the Empire to run when they first arrived, thinking we were facing our greatest threat. Instead, we found our greatest allies. Together, we're preparing to face the true enemy of all life in the universe. And this time, we're the ones who won't run. The real war hasn't even begun, but for the first time in the history of our galaxy, we're truly ready for it.